I'm Jody Spinelli, and I was told about Dr. Nemeh actually by my best friend Kirsten, and at the time, I don't know how long ago that was, so see, my son's 23 now,
It was like 15
probably
or 16 years ago.
5 at the time. He went to preschool, and the letter came home saying that he had failed his eye exam, and I ignored it, figuring he probably just didn't recognize all the letters of the alphabet yet. So the next year he went to kindergarten, and the same letter came home from the school nurse that he couldn't read the eye chart. And I thought, okay, no big deal. He probably needs glasses, I wear glasses, so I took him to see Dr. Marcotti at the Cole Eye Institute at the Cleveland Clinic where I worked at the time. And he examined Billy in a very detailed, he was a pediatric specialist, so his exam was extremely thorough. And he proceeded to tell me at the end of the appointment that Billy had something called macular, not degeneration, macular dystrophy. And that basically he was losing his eyesight, and that there was no way to determine how quickly or when it would happen, just that at some point in his life, he was gonna lose his eyesight. So I didn't tell Billy this, and I had to hold back my tears the whole way home, and I got home to my husband, and you know, here you just take your kid for an eye doctor's appointment, next thing you're being told your son could be going blind. And so I told my husband, I said, you call him and you tell him to tell you what he told me, because I won't repeat it. I won't say it. So my husband got him on the phone, and he told my husband the same thing. And we didn't tell Billy because we didn't want Billy to use it as a crutch or as an excuse. You know, he played softball and he was a very active kid, and we thought, you know, we don't know when and if this is going to happen. Let's just go about our lives and let's just kind of wait and see what happens. And so we started to just kind of pretty much just go about life. And as time went on, his vision worsened, and he would go to the eye doctor and he would have to get glasses, real thick pop bottle glasses, and eventually he needed school interventionalist where they had to get books that had large print letters in it. And during testing, he was allowed to go out into the hallway and take longer, as long as he needed. There were no time tests for Billy. When other tests were timed for kids, Billy didn't have to take time tests. He was allowed to have all the time he needed. So he had all these special needs things going on at school. And he always just thought it was a vision thing, no big deal. Never told him. We were also concerned about having other children, because if it was congenital or if it was hereditary, you don't want to deal with the idea that you're going to have one child who is blind and then have other children. So that stopped us from having other children, which we always wanted. We didn't want to be an only child. So as time went on, he was, progressively getting worse. And then we went to see Dr. Nemeh. The first time it was in Garfield, and it was in the middle of winter, and I remember it was very cold, and the line was out the door, down the road, St. Peter and Paul, and we waited, and we never even got in. It was
like 10 o'clock at night.
It was very late and very cold, and so they came out and they gave us a ticket and said if we came back a few weeks later, or however long it was, to St. Bernadette, we would get in. So the second time we went back, I told my husband I wanted my husband to go, and he was like, unsure, but he went, and we took Billy, and we were sitting in the pews, and people were being brought in stretchers and wheelchairs, and I remember the crowd of people gathering around each individual person as it was their turn, and them praying. And as my husband and I sat there, the tension, our shoulders were up here, throat blocked, ears blocked, head stress, pounding headache, pressure, all this like weight, and you're tense. And I remember Dr. Nemeh coming over, and we stood up, and he said, "What are you here for?" And I didn't want Billy to hear, so I whispered in his ear. And they laid their hands on Billy, and they all started praying. And we started to walk out, and as we got into the parking lot, my husband said to me, "Did you feel that?" And I knew what he was saying. I knew exactly what he meant, but I wanted it to come out of his mouth. So I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, all this was gone. The shoulders were dropped. You could breathe, our noses weren't stuffed up, our throats were clear, our heads were clear, the headache was gone. All this was just gone. It was like complete comfort and relief. And I said, yeah, I felt the same thing. And so we went home that night. And
now, did Dr. Nemeh pray over his eyes, Billy's
he
eyes?
did. He put his hands on his head and on his face. And
so did Billy feel anything, or you didn't tell him, so he didn't know what to say?
He didn't exactly know. I think he was under the impression it had something just to do with him wearing glasses, because he was a little boy. And so here's what he told me the next morning. I heard him wake up the next morning, and I heard a commotion in his room. And I went in there, and he was throwing a bit of a temper tantrum. And I said, what's going on? And he was holding his glasses, and he's going like twisting. I can't see. I still need my glasses. And I started laughing, and I said, Billy, do you think that we took you there so that you wouldn't have to wear glasses? I said, did you see the people that were in there in the wheelchairs and the stretchers that were terminally ill, that had cancers, honey, if all you have to do in life is wear glasses, you already have had a miracle. I'm like, you're already blessed beyond measure. I'm like, that's silly. And he went, oh, okay, like you're right. He put his glasses on and he went about his day to school. Well, Dr. Marcotti had told me that if he starts to complain that he's having problems seeing with the new lenses, he wants me to call right away because he wants to examine him while the changes are happening. So I would get a phone call from the school that Billy's throwing a fit. He can't see through the glasses. He's getting frustrated. And so I would call Dr. Marcotti thinking, oh God, this is it. He can't see. And I rushed him in, and he did an eye exam, and he said, it's like, something's not right here. It's like, this isn't, I see improvement, and this is not something, this disease doesn't do this. It doesn't get better. And so months went by, and I kept taking him back, and every time I took him back, he had to lessen. I was getting him new lenses for his glasses like every few months. And finally I took him in, and he said, he doesn't have macular dystrophy, and this isn't something that just goes away. He goes, what do you attribute it to? And I said, it's a miracle. And he said, well, then it's a miracle. And ever since then, now my son is 23, he has perfectly fine vision. He doesn't even need to wear glasses. He has no issues with his eyes. And I cannot deny, I will never deny, if anybody were to ever ask me, I will never deny that it is a miracle and that it's a blessing from God. And I've prayed to God for things, and I feel like God, for some reason, I don't know why he answers my prayers, but I feel like I'm very blessed for some reason. I wish I knew why I deserved this, but we now have a 10-year-old baby girl, because once he was freed from that diagnosis, I finally was like, okay, it's safe to go on and build my family. And yeah, so I'm grateful, and I'm thankful, and I'm so appreciative, and he is too. And he doesn't talk about it much, but he knows now as an adult, and he knows that, and he's very religious himself too. He's a very, very religious boy. So I'm very grateful and thankful and appreciative.
So if you were talking to someone, and what would you tell them about Dr. Nemeh?
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Nemeh refused any accolades. He said, it is not me, it is not by my doing. He will not take any credit for what has happened. He gives it to God, and he says he just works through him. And I believe that it was, through Dr. Nemeh's faith and hands and prayer, but also something about being in a church filled with hundreds and hundreds of other people, all praying for each other at the same time, that God hears the prayers in numbers. It's hard to hear one little quiet prayer, but it's hard to not hear that big prayers like that, So I just believe that it was just everybody together, coming together, and all praying for each other.
It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing your beautiful miracle story. Truly, It is a miracle.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Any advice you'd say for someone coming to see a doctor? Do you guys have sometimes? Any advice you would give to someone that's considering coming to see Dr. Nemeh or a prayer service and weren't sure?
I really believe that you have to believe in your heart. You have to honestly believe that you believe in Jesus Christ and you believe in God, and that you pray to him and talk to him daily, often, all the time. If you pray and you talk, you know, I go out for my walks and that's my time alone. I say that's my time alone with God. That's when I pray. That's when I just thank him all the time and praise him and just thank him. And you have to have that one-on-one relationship, I believe, to really open up the communication to receive those prayers.
Thank you.
Thanks.